Welcome back to Colorado Sports Connection. We're coming to you from Big Bill's New York Pizza, and we're talking with sports writer Terry Frei of the Denver Post.
By the way, I need to thank you for giving in to my demand to have this at my favorite restaurant in Denver.
You know, Big Bill's is also my favorite restaurant, but Terry, we take care of our guests.
Yeah, well,
so
thank you very much.
Anytime, you just tell us.
I walk in the door and they know my order. I mean, I have the same thing every time. I won't give it away here.
So it's safe to say you're like Norma Cheers?
Yes.
Okay, good. As we move on from your favorite restaurant here, Denver, 1976, young sports writer comes on. Here we are now in 2010. You've seen a lot of changes in the Denver sports community here.
When the Broncos were about to become a force, even more of a force in this community, the 1977 Denver Broncos, when Red Miller came in to be the head coach, we were going through a transition period. And I just happened to walk into it as a green young sports writer at the Denver Post in early 1977. So when I chronicle in the book 77, for example, I was a part of it. And I think we were kind of an outpost at the time. We were insecure. We were looking at ourselves as somewhat of a cow town. And the transition since then has been remarkable. But I traced it in the book 77 to the beginnings of that to being with the 77 Denver Broncos.
Okay. And why the insecurity at that time?
Well, we were also worried about whether Howard Cosell would put the Broncos on the Monday night highlights. We were also concerned about what the national media thought of us. You know, and I marvel sometimes, we still get caught up in that occasionally. You know, I'll hear somebody say, well, they didn't get all the credit they deserved in New York. Well, why should we care what people think in New York? This is a big enough market now. We have enough regional and national identification pride that I don't think we need to get caught up so much in what other people think of us. But there was even more of it back in that day. We always felt like we were isolated in the Mountain Time Zone. We always felt like the Broncos were still wearing those horrible vertically striped socks and terrible colors, and there was kind of a lot of insecurity about being in the ABA, the second league, about the baseball being minor league, and perhaps getting into the Continental Baseball League. So there was kind of a sense of that second-tier status that we were trying to overcome. And I think that's why the 77 Broncos were so instrumental in nudging along Denver to kind of a self-esteem status of nature.
And what about the players, the players that you covered? For you, who were the most colorful players of that team in 1977?
Well, I think the players, the word colorful, you keep coming back to Tom Jackson taunting John Madden during the Raiders rivalry.
It's all over, Fat Boy?
Yeah, it's all over, Fat Madden. But I also think about the quiet, businesslike demeanor of so many of those players. Louis Wright was the best cornerback in the business and never got enough credit because he wasn't flamboyant. He didn't call attention to himself. The great linebackers, Bob Swenson, Randy Gradishar, who should be in the Hall of Fame, and everybody knows it except the drunken voters on the Saturday morning before the Super Bowl. And everybody involved with that team. Billy Thompson was a great cornerback and a great safety. And so there was a collective swagger to that team, but it wasn't an outgoing look at us type attention that we're so used to seeing now. And I think that's hurt that team. But in a sense, what it did was create a collective identity for that team. Now, when I say 77 Broncos or Orange Crush Defense, people know what I'm talking about. That's a collective identity. And I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay to that team in its development, in its role in the development of sports in Denver, is that it's a collective identity. You don't think of any one player on that team, whether it's the M&M connection, Haven Moses and Craig Morton, Otis Armstrong, the running back. It was a collective identity. And I think in a me world that we're seeing so often here in 2010, that's one of the biggest compliments you can pay that team, is that you think of it as a collective entity.
And speaking of the identity, one of the guys that I truly respect and admire that helped you with the book 77 is Ron Zappolo. And I want to get your thoughts on Ron when we come back after this break. We'll have more with Terry Frei on Colorado Sports Connection.
No matter where in the world you are, everybody loves pizza. And from coast to coast, everybody knows there's no pizza like a New York pizza. Right here in Colorado, there's no pizza like Big Bill's New York Pizza. If it's pizza you want, then Big Bill's is the place. If you're even thinking about another pizza joint, forget about it. Come on in and see for yourself why Big Bill's New York Pizza is Colorado's best pizza.